After a stroke, some patients may experience some significant, moderate, even light developing, increasing shoulder pain. And this may be due to many reasons. One of the most common causes of shoulder pain after stroke is just the shoulder not working so well, right? So we're not using it as much. The muscles aren't working the same way as before. Kind of our arm is dangling. So basically it creates a pull from our arm because it has weight to it and because of gravity against the joint where our shoulder joint is. That's kind of like as if someone were to pull on your arm like non-stop, continually, like every time you get out of bed. That's gonna hurt, and it's kind of like pulling something out of the joint, right? So the pain can develop one of these ways. And if you have had shoulder pain before, it can come back and can even amplify after a stroke. Right now, I'm kind of supporting my stroke arm with the bed, so it's not being pulled on. But if my arm, for example, was just off to the side like this, then it would probably be pulled down because of, well, gravity. As my arm has weight to it, it's going to pull on my arm, and then it's going to have that same kind of feeling and phenomenon as if someone were to pull on your arm all the time. Studies have basically been inconclusive about whether slings are really helpful for patients after a stroke. That is because one complication of wearing a sling, especially 24/7 or like more than you should, is that it locks your arm in this position. And this is kind of a not great position because it can also lead to muscle shortening and decreased flexibility after a stroke. So I think it's really a balance between moving your arm and doing exercises and stretching it and supporting it, as opposed to the extreme opposite. That would be wearing a sling 24/7, right? So I think somewhere in the middle. I'm not totally against wearing a sling. I think there are some use cases for wearing a sling, such as if your arm is like really floppy. But even for some patients after a stroke, even if they're managing it really well, they're watching where their arm is, they're supporting it as much as they can, they're doing their exercises, they're stretching it out, they're taking medications that are prescribed by their providers. Sometimes you just want a little bit more help to help with the pain so that you can get through it and do other things and live your day-to-day life, right? So one of the things that I have been a big proponent of is a TENS machine, kind of like this one. Now, I've actually had chronic pain for a long time in my low back, and I really attribute a lot of my recovery and just my management of my pain to one of these TENS units. And these TENS units, if you haven't used them before, if you're kind of new to it, basically it has like a battery to it. Some of them are replaceable, some of them are rechargeable. Like the one, this model is like a lithium ion rechargeable, kind of like your cell phone. And it sends your electrical signal down this cable, and they come in pairs. So when you put on a TENS unit, you should definitely put the pads on in pairs in even numbers, so 2, 4, 6. Not just like one single pad, and you'll see that they kind of split off and they're paired off too already. So this one has 2 channels and one channel has a pair of 2. So this has basically 2 times 2, 4 total pads. And how it works is it sends an electrical signal, basically very like not very deep level in your skin when we use the TENS mode, and it kind of disrupts, one way you can kind of think about the analogy is it disrupts the electrical signals from going to your spinal cord and then being sent up to your brain, which is then interpreted as ouch, pain. So it's kind of like a distractor, and it's a very low level electricity. Some people, you should know, are not recommended to use it, such as those with cardiac heart issues, or if you have like a pacemaker, or you have seizures. So definitely read the instruction manual and what they recommend or not recommend when using it. But very low risk, especially if you don't have any heart issues, things like that. And how it works is basically you turn it on in the very basic level, beginner level, which is this is what I personally actually use, is you just turn it on, you set the mode, which is TENS mode, and then you just set the intensity and then off it goes. Now there are different modes, and what these different modes do is just controls like the electricity that goes through. It's basically how frequent is it sending the electrical signal, how long is it sending it for, and how intense is it for. Now you don't necessarily need to worry about the exact same like minute like small details and the parameters of how to set this. They are pretty beginner friendly as they have kind of preset modes and recommendations. Now, as there are many models out there, I'm not going to really be able to tell you how to set it up. just go by the instruction manual. At the very least, just set it to tens mode, probably the first preset, the most basic one, because if they have like 20 presets, you're probably safe just going off preset number 1. That's probably the one that they want you to start off with. And honestly, even for myself, I was just using tens preset number 1, like the first one that I saw, for the longest time before I even started messing around with the other ones. So how do you use a tens unit? First, it starts off with the pad application. Now you peel it off basically off the backing. It's kind of like those electrode things when you go in for like a test for like your heart condition. It sticks to your skin quite well. So with that said, most of the time you don't need to apply any like special gel or anything like that. It has a pretty sticky kind of like glue kind of thing that sticks to your skin. Now, I personally haven't had any issues with allergic reactions. If those of you who have any concerns for allergic reactions, if you have any reactions to adhesive in the past, then I highly recommend you, of course, try it out like on a small part of your skin, leave it there for like 5 minutes, see if it turns red or you have any reaction before you kind of stick it on for a longer time or even turn it on. Now, where should you stick a TENS pad? Now, I've actually made this common mistake when I was like first a new therapist, and one common mistake with sticking the pads on, as you have two, is to not place it directly over where you're having the pain. So for example, if I was having pain kind of like on this corner where my shoulder is, I wouldn't place a pad directly over. The key is to place the pad next to or adjacent to where you're having the pain so that the electrode signals travel through that area. Basically, because there are two, kind of like a positive and negative, it travels from one pad to the other. So what you want is to have the pad adjacent to where you experience pain. So for example, if I have pain, let's say in this corner part of where my seam is for my scrubs, then I would not place it right over here. I would place it, say, one in front and then one behind, or I can like these two places, or I can put it in another location adjacent to it. And that is maybe below and then above it. So these two spots. And as you have 4 pads, you can start off with just 2 and try either of those placements, or you can combine it and use all 4. If you have, say, 2 channels with 2 pads each, that gives you a total of 4, right? Like I have in my model, then I can place it in all of those locations. So that would be basically putting 2 here and then another 2 here. But I would avoid putting one directly over the actual part where I have pain. So I'll show you guys with this model. I don't know if you can actually see here. Yeah. Here I have it on, I have different kind of preset modes here. And I have TENS, EMS, or PMS. This is more for muscle strengthening. And this is kind of like a massager mode. So this technically has 3, but we're going to focus on the, sorry about the light keep turning off. We're going to focus on the TENS mode. So as you can see, you can jump around. Now this of course varies with each of your models. I'm going to leave it on TENS mode. And you see here I have like preset number 1, preset number 2. So I'm just going to leave it on preset number 1 just to start off. And then it has different channels. So basically this up and down allows me to increase the intensity. So as you can see here, the bars are going up. So that's for this side of the channel. And then for channel B, I can also like similarly, if I flip over to it, increase its intensity. So that's kind of nice because I can adjust individual intensities. And even for this particular model, I can actually change the modes too and presets. So that's very customizable. And other than that, the last thing you can set is the time. So how long you want it to run for. So like, for example, this model can run up to 90 minutes. And also this is probably common sense, but I highly recommend that you start from the very lowest intensity from like 1, then going up slowly. Don't start off like with 10. I know some of you may be kind of more adventurous, but just start out at a very low intensity, like level 1, 2, and just feel it and see how it goes. Maybe put it on for 15 minutes. And if you don't have any adverse reactions, it doesn't bother you too much, then you can increase the time that you have it on and it also increase the intensity. So the last thing with TENS is, well, does it work for everyone, right? Should I invest in buying a device like this? Well, first of all, you should know that some of these devices, based on your insurance and where you live, it may be covered. It may be covered by your insurance. For example, where I live, I believe my insurance, or at least my HSA, FSA, so those specialized healthcare accounts that you kind of put money in so that you do not have to pay. It's tax deferred or tax free, basically. It may be eligible for these devices. You may or may not need basically a doctor's note, but you can, for example, sometimes purchase these devices under your HSA, FSA accounts. And the other thing that is really cool about these devices is that they're not very expensive. For example, this device that I personally bought with my own money, but I'll post an affiliate link because I kind of really highly endorse this product. I use it myself. I purchased it for family members. It's only $25. Like, that's like nowadays like a meal, like a lunch meal. Like, honestly, like I wouldn't say it's affordable for everyone. I know for some of you, you have different financial situations, so you cannot, you're just like having a lot of trouble just paying for things like medications, but this is highly worth considering. So because if you think about it, it's a small investment to make, but it gives you long-term relief for your pain and long-term gains in terms of recovery. Because this also has an EMS, PMS function, which will not go into, it's kind of like beyond the scope of this video, but that also helps recovery for stroke and helping your muscle return and promote functional recovery. So this is kind of a two-in-one device. For $25, you get two devices in one, and it can help you a lot at the very least with pain. Now, back to, is it gonna work for everybody? Well, as we know, with humans, every single body's different. We all have different body types, different genders, cultures, different pain thresholds. Some of us may be having more chronic conditions. Some of us may have more chronic pain. Some people may have just different stroke, right? So I'm not gonna go out and say that this TENS unit works for everybody 100%. I don't even know what percentage I would estimate, but I think this is actually worth trying and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't, just maybe put it in a drawer, and at the very least you can use it for another family member. You can re-gift it. I would say more likely than not, you will be surprised at how much this can be to help relieve your pain. And with that said, TENS isn't kind of like a one size fits all in terms of how there's a protocol, put it here and then set it to this setting. There's no one magic setting and magic placement for the TENS unit for your shoulder pain. I went over some common, most likely to help you areas, but your shoulder may have pain in a very specific area, right? So kind of go off that general rule of putting the pads around it and surrounding it. But also TENS is kind of very try and experiment with a kind of device. You kind of have to be very patient and try different pad placement areas, try different TENS parameters. I know you can dial it in and do very specific hertz and frequencies and stuff like that. But for the beginner level devices, they make it very user friendly to try and jump between the presets. So try preset number 1 and try that for a week, and then preset number 2. And then you'll find out maybe preset number 4 is actually the right one for you. And also try different intensities. Maybe you just need a higher level intensity. And there's a lot of kind of variation in how you can apply this device, right? Just like how you can do exercise maybe several times a day, and then how many reps do you do, and then how often do you do it? Same thing applies to this TENS unit. Some people can wear this for half an hour to start seeing results. Some people may wear it for an hour, and then 3 hours a day. So with that said, there isn't one real okay, you shouldn't wear a TENS unit and use it for more than a certain amount of time. That's also the very cool thing, is that TENS, there isn't really a real do not use over a certain time threshold, because everyone is different. General rule is just to give yourself some breaks, not so much for the risk, but just to give your skin some break from the TENS and the adhesive more than anything. And if the thought of using a device like this kind of freaks you out, maybe talk to your provider, your doctor, maybe someone you've known who used it before about this, a therapist, occupational therapist, about what they think about a TENS unit for controlling pain, especially for shoulder pain after a stroke. There are a lot of studies out there showing that these devices can be effective for some patients, not all, but for those, imagine you are one of those patients. Medications, right? Medications, you pay for it, and then it's a prescription to control your pain, right? And I'm not totally against medications, right? But they do have their side effects. And then you need to remember to take them. And if you don't, then you're going to be in pain. Same thing, I guess, with this, but you can just put this on right away. You don't have to wait half an hour for it to kick in. Some studies show that patients can start feeling the effects in the pain relief like right away. Others may take longer. And the other thing is cost, right? This is a one-time cost of $25. If you are one of those people who pays for like even over the counter like Tylenol or ibuprofen, that's a continued cost to control your pain over time. Like if your pain is chronic and ongoing, you're gonna have to keep paying for the cost of medications and those refills. And if you're on medications that cost even more, then that's also gonna cost you even more in the long term. I may or may not convince some of you, right? Some of you may have used it before. I'm really trying to introduce the idea of this device so that you can do more research into it yourself, so that you can really think about if it can be really helpful. Now, of course, anecdotally, I'm just one person on the internet. I'm a therapist. I have worked with patients who have had strokes every day. I personally haven't had a stroke, but in terms of pain, for me, my specific use case of low back pain, it has helped me tremendously, like so much so that I'm completely off medications. Like once in a while, I do take medications for pain, but that's only if I have like really bad headaches. It's not even related to my back pain. Whenever I have some back pain, I just put this device on and off I go. I'm doing work, I'm sitting at the desk, I'm like walking around, even like this thing like slips into your pocket, right? The only thing you probably shouldn't do is like drive with it or work with heavy machinery, but you can do a lot while wearing this device to help relieve your pain so you can live your life. Let me know in the comments, have any of you used a device like a TENS unit before? Have you had much success with it? Has it helped you a lot? How often do you wear it? Do you wear it for a long time? Just very short periods to notice effects? Where do you place your pads? Give us all some tips, especially those of you who've had a stroke out there and you have shoulder pain. Where do you place it? What are your settings? So hope this helps. As this is YouTube, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, so that I know to make more of this kind of content to help you guys, really the patients out there. It's why I personally do this as a therapist and why I do it on YouTube now, to get more global reach based on my insights and what I've learned in my practice.